JK Rowling has hit back at Harry Potter star Emma Watson. Emma and Dan in particular have both made it clear over the last few years that they think our former professional association gives them a particular right to critique me and my views in public.
I'm here for all of the witches.
They definitely took the easy way out. Emma asked someone to pass on a handwritten note from her to me. She has my phone number.
A conversation was never made possible.
Now, this is very interesting. Emma has had so little experience of real life. She's ignorant of how ignorant she is.
You don't seem able to do some pretty basic life things.
Hello, my name is Kizzy. My pronouns are she, her.
I wonder what it is about a movement campaigning to allow men into protected spaces for women and girls that might attract sexual predators.
I stand shoulder to shoulder with those who would wish harm on her, hate her, and would wish the absolute worst for her in her life.
Snaps for JK Rowling. JK Rowling has hit back at Harry Potter star Emma Watson after she appeared on the Jay Shetty Podcast, in which she said she still loved JK Rowling.
I really don't believe the love and support and views that I have mean that I can't and don't treasure Joe.
In a punchy, honest, and frankly quite scathing tweet, JK Rowling let out all her thoughts and revealed some new information which we had not yet known before. Now, you may have seen my recent live stream where I did a deep dive into what Emma said on the podcast and also looked historically at the different things she had said about trans issues after JK Rowling came out in opposition to gender ideology. This has been followed by years of turf wars, rape threats, death threats, and more towards JK Rowling, but yet the Harry Potter stars still seem to be steadfast in their opinion and which side they were taking on, and that is the trans activists and the transitioning of minors. And in the comments, some of you respectfully disagreed with some of my more balanced takes on this dynamic. But I have to say, after reading JK Rowling's tweet, I have definitely changed my mind on a few things here. So before we get into what she said, let's have a quick reminder of a couple of things Emma said on the podcast.
I really don't believe that by having had that experience and holding the love and support and views that I have mean that I can't and don't treasure Joe and the person that I had personal experiences with. I will never believe that one negates the other, and that my experience of that person I don't get to keep and cherish. To come back to our earlier thing, I just don't think these things are either or.
Now, since watching this, I have had far more time to reflect on what Emma said, and I am definitely now more critical of her position. But to just remind you, here are my main key points in that video. Number one, I don't think it's right to say that the Harry Potter stars should somehow be beholden to JK Rowling and that they have to have the same opinions as her because JK Rowling is supposedly supposed to have been the key to their success and fame. Number two, although I feel they have a right to disagree with her, I still feel like the way they came out immediately to condemn her, some of their swipes and jibes at JK Rowling, including Daniel Radcliffe's insane and irresponsible panel with children talking about medical transition and justifying the transitioning of minors, as well as Emma Watson's unnecessary, pathetic, and passive-aggressive comments at the BAFTA Awards.
I'm here for all of the witches.
We'll have another look at that later. Number three, that JK Rowling's comments that the stars had ruined the movies for her seemed to be a little bit harsh and perhaps an exaggeration. Although retrospectively, I think this was somewhat of a joke, so I can concede on that matter. Number four, although I think what Emma said in the interview was pretty balanced and thoughtful, and that I largely agree with her position of being able to hold two conflicting thoughts in your head at once, and just because you disagree with someone doesn't mean you have to forget all about them, forget all the good contributions they've made to your life. And honestly, this is quite a common sense position for lots of people. You know, we don't have to somehow agree with everything someone else else says. And the fact that she finds this such a battle in her head and that she finds it so hard to reconcile this person she once knew just because this woman has a certain view on sex-based rights really goes to my fifth point, in that I feel Emma Watson undoubtedly possesses what we call luxury beliefs, in that she has had a very unique upbringing and lifestyle due to her massive fame as a child and being in the public eye this whole time. One could assume that the kind of trials and tribulations that Emma has faced in the public eye are really nowhere close to the struggles of a normal person. And finally, number 6, I felt like a lot of the stuff Emma said was disingenuous and quite self-indulgent. She seemed to give herself an easy pass on some of the remarks she had made against JK Rowling, as if they just peacefully disagreed on something and drifted, whereas it was quite a targeted approach from her, and also suggesting that she believes in having conversations.
I really do believe in having conversations, and that those are really important, and that I don't know,
when she never attempted to even have the conversation. And the whole tone of it being somehow that JK Rowling has done this horrible thing, but I'm going to be the bigger person and forgive her and still love her, overall was very centered on Emma herself, and there was no ounce of apology or reflection that perhaps she may have been able to handle these things better. Now, I assume a lot of that is from the fear she has from the trans activists and the dawning realization that a lot of the things she supported, including donating to the Mermaids charity, and now how the transitioning of minors is totally disgraced, as well as countless examples of women who have been harmed from this. And I still think Emma has a lot of reflection to do on how much she actually hurt JK Rowling, and not merely just having sympathy for the trans activists.
What would you say to those people who would have an issue sharing a public bathroom with me?
Oh my goodness. I'd say, that's another human being.
JK Rowling was yet to break the silence on what Emma said, and honestly, I felt like she was just going to ignore it. But this tweet was actually quoting in reply to Fiona McInerney, who works for Sex Matters, in an interview she had on GB News. So first, let's have a look at that clip.
Well, I'd like to think so, and I think there are some other positive signs too that things are shifting. When you see the media starting to say trans women are men, then I think we really are winning. But Emma Watson was careful, wasn't she, not to go too far. I think what she's going to find now is you can't sit on the fence. She was a real cheerleader for Mermaids, the charity, and for transitioning children and for people knowing who they are.
So I think Fiona is absolutely right. It seems like every time someone tries to come out and say, oh, well, I'm going to be balanced and I'm going to somehow appease both sides, they are really in for something, because what they slowly learn is that the trans activists have no middle ground. I've said this before. You're either completely on the train or completely off, and any attempt to sympathize with the enemy is going to get you just as cancelled as them.
There was also kind of there's that clip of her at the BAFTAs, and it was just kind of like a really snidey, there's that bit where she says, I'm here for all the witch, like, but one. Or what, yeah, it was just nasty.
Yeah.
Right when JK Rowling was getting a lot of rape threats, death threats.
So whether she is trying to row back from that full-hearted support for transitioning children, or whether she's just trying to get back in with JK Rowling in the hope of work, who knows?
And something very interesting here is their comment on what Emma said at the BAFTAs. So let's have another look at that clip.
I'm here for all of the witches.
Now you can see after Emma Watson quite gleefully and self-indulgently says,
I'm here for all of the witches.
It seems like she mutters something else which is inaudible. On GB News, they seem to have suggested she said, I'm here for all the witches except one. Let's just see that one more time.
I'm here for all of the witches. All of the witches.
All of the witches.
And I've got to say, I think this is possible. And if it is, I think it's an absolute disgrace. You know, how dare you make this award ceremony about your feud with JK Rowling and have another jibe at her. But I also have to say, it's not entirely clear to me if this is definitely what she said. So I guess we'll leave that one up to you.
It's not so much what we say or what we believe, but very often how we say it.
Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying this video about JK Rowling's comments on Emma Watson's interview. And really quickly, if you are not subscribed, but you watch and enjoy my videos, what are you doing? Please come and join the family. Hit the subscribe button, it's totally free. And I just passed 18K, so thank you so much for that. I'd love to get to 20K by the end of the year, so let's do it together. And if you want to, if you like the video, please hit the like button. You know you want to. And with that said, let's get back into it. And now we're into the big part of the video. Let's have a look at what JK Rowling actually said. I'm seeing quite a bit of comment about this, so I wanted to make a couple of points. I'm not owed eternal agreement from any actor who once played a character I created. The idea is as ludicrous as me checking with the boss I had when I was 21 for what opinions I should hold these days. Absolutely agree. This is kind of what I said. You can't expect people just to agree with someone because they gave you an opportunity, a very big one in this case. But my critique was all about how they came out with it, how they handled it, and how it was very targeted towards JK Rowling and entirely one-sided. Emma Watson and her co-stars have every right to embrace gender identity ideology. True, although I think it is incredibly misguided and unfortunate that they have somehow ended up supporting child abuse, but there you go. Such beliefs are legally protected, and I wouldn't want to see any of them threatened with loss of work or violence or death because of them. Now, this is pretty gracious because we know JK Rowling has been threatened with all of those things, but what you'll find on the gender critical side is that the vast majority of people want no harm to come of people who identify as trans. They just disagree with their belief system and feel it is harmful. However, Emma and Dan in particular have both made it clear over the last few years that they think our former professional association gives them a particular right, nay obligation, to critique me and my views in public. Years after they finished acting in Potter, they continue to assume the role of de facto spokespeople for the world I created. Now, this is something I hadn't really thought of before because Harry Potter is JK Rowling's world. And of course, they played big parts in the movie. But if it is true that they have continued to be spokespeople for the movie while also condemning her, I think this is just really bad play. And we see from the trans activists them trying to retain the world of Harry Potter, but somehow cancel JK Rowling herself by removing her name from the book or burning the books or just agreeing together that they're going to forget all about the fact that she wrote them. And I think this is totally absurd. I don't think you can really separate the art from the artist because JK Rowling's values and beliefs are absolutely baked into every word of that book. And anyone with a bit of common sense in JK Rowling writing complex characters, characters who are misunderstood, and characters who are discriminated against in life, such as Dumbledore supposedly being gay, or the house elves like Dobby being appallingly treated, it is just very foolish to assume that that person who spent years of her life writing the books has somehow all of a sudden been radicalized and turned into a right-wing Nazi. But that was the easier opinion to adopt, and because they live in this world of Hollywood and the media where everything is about trans, they definitely took the easy way out. When you've known people since they were 10 years old, it's hard to shake certain protectiveness. Until quite recently, I hadn't managed to throw off the memory of children who needed to be gently coaxed through their dialogue in a big scary film studio. For the past few years, I've repeatedly declined invitations from journalists to comment on Emma specifically, most notably on the witch trials of JK Rowling. Ironically, I told the producers that I didn't want her to be hounded as a result of anything I said. Now, this is clearly JK Rowling taking the higher ground. Although they came out with, like I said, very targeted and cheap statements against her, she did not do this, and she specifically declined because she felt it wouldn't be productive. And one can owe her some grace for a few of the tweets she made, which weren't even her main tweets, but in reply to other people. And of course, she's perfectly entitled to express these and have her opinion. So I have to say, I do take back my statement that some of her comments were a bit harsh, because honestly, I think she could have gone much further and still been in the right. The television presenter in the attached clip highlights Emma's all witches speech, and in truth, that was the turning point for me. But it had a postscript that hurt far more than the speech itself. Emma asked someone to pass on a handwritten note from her to me, which contained a single sentence: "I'm so sorry for what you're going through. She has my phone number." Now, this is very interesting. Why would you pass on a handwritten note instead of just picking the phone up, giving someone a call and talking about it if you really feel bad for them? But you know, Emma Watson, the absolute abuse, the rape threats, doxing and threats to JK Rowling's daughter's life that she has experienced. And overall, this is just so incredibly cowardly, especially when Emma said on the podcast,
"A conversation was never made possible."
So you remain open for that dialogue?
Yeah, And I always will. I believe in that.
Well, you chose your route, Emma. You chose to publicly humiliate her on TV and show very clearly what side you were on, and then somehow thinking some pathetic handwritten note to her would reconcile this, even though you were instrumental into her feeling this way, abandoned, isolated, and excommunicated from this whole media class. This was back when the death, rape, and torture threats against me were at their peak, at a time when my personal security measures had to be tightened considerably, and I was constantly worried for my family's safety. So that is just terrible. I mean, what trans person, even though there's supposedly a trans genocide, has really suffered this kind of targeted abuse? Let me know. Emma had just publicly poured more petrol on the flames, yet thought a one-line expression of concern from her would reassure me of her fundamental sympathy and kindness. Exactly what I said. Pathetic, weak, and just totally vapid. Like other people who've never experienced adult life uncushioned by wealth and fame, Emma has had so little experience of real life, she's ignorant of how ignorant she is. She'll never need a homeless shelter. She's never going to be placed on a mixed-sex public hospital ward. I'd be astounded if she's been in a high street changing room since childhood. Her public bathroom is single occupancy and comes with a security man standing guard outside the door. Has she had to strip off in a newly mixed-sex changing room at a council-run swimming pool? Is she ever likely to need a state-run rape crisis center that refuses to guarantee all female service? To find herself sharing a prison cell with a male rapist who's identified into a women's prison? So all completely true. And while I listened to the whole podcast with Emma, and she has her own life experience, you know, fame comes with a lot of its own challenges, but these challenges are relative, and you can't compare them to that of just a normal person who have been subjected to these kind of scenarios. Just imagine if Emma was raped, she would have a whole private center set up. If Emma had to go to hospital, she would be in a private hospital with her own room. And as JK Rowling said, she has security with her. And this is in contrast to women like Sandy Peggy, who have been subjected to sharing a changing room with a fully intact male and completely smeared by the NHS and having to go to court to defend herself, all while suffering horrendous abuse from trans activists. That seems to be lost on Emma, or perhaps it's not, but she's just too afraid to say. And who knows, Emma has got several driving tickets due to her not being a good driver, so maybe she still will end up in a women's prison. Let's watch that space. I wasn't a multi-millionaire at 14. I lived in poverty while writing the book that made Emma famous. I therefore understand from my own life experience what the trashing of women's rights, in which Emma has so enthusiastically participated, means to women and girls without her privileges. And if you have the patience to actually watch this whole podcast, Emma specifically talks about how when she took a break from acting, you know, her last film was Little Women in 2019, that she worried about being able to just function in normal everyday to day life and take care of herself.
On a movie set, I'm able to do all of these like extremely complex things. Stunts, sing, dance, like do this thing, do that, whatever. And then I get home and I'm like, okay, Emma, you seem unable to remember keys. You seem unable to like keep yourself at 30 miles an hour in a 30 mile speed limit. Like you don't seem able to do some pretty like basic life things.
Because up until that point, she had a whole retinue of people around her doing all these things for her. And while I do actually commend her for taking the step back and trying to be more independent and seek more from life than the movies themselves, it doesn't seem like she has joined up these two positions. Instead, she has focused it entirely on herself. It's me, 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 me. The greatest irony here is that had Emma not decided in her most recent interview to declare that she loves and treasures me, a change of tact I suspect she's adopted because she's noticed full-throated condemnation of me is no longer quite as fashionable as it was. I might never have been this honest. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, JK Rowling took the higher ground. She thought this is collateral damage, this is a lost case, and I'm not going to bother comment on this. But because she has put out this incredibly self-centered interview, I am now going to say my piece, and I'm so glad she has. Adults can't expect to cozy up to an activist movement that regularly calls for a friend's assassination, then assert their right to the former friend's love, as though the friend was in fact their mother. Emma is rightly free to disagree with me, and indeed to discuss her feelings about me in public, but I have the same right, and I finally decided to exercise it. Snaps for JK Rowling. So yeah, I just think this is excellently written. I think it is fair. I think it is honest. And I just really wonder what Emma's going to think if she has the guts to read this.
No one's disposable.
What do you guys think? Do you agree with JK Rowling? And do you agree on some of the takes that I've taken back? I'd love to know. Now, just as an extension to this, JK Rowling has a few other interesting tweets that she's made, which really backs up her case. One of them is about trans activists and so-called trans woman, i.e. a man who thinks he's a woman, is facing trial on charges related to the sexual abuse of a young girl. Kizzy Lavender Lee Wimbridge, why do they always have these fetishistic, gross names, is a former operations lead for Newbury Pride and spoke at Trans Day of Remembrance in Reading. So JK Rowling said, "I wonder what it is about a movement campaigning to allow men into protected spaces for women and girls that might attract sexual predators, a mystery for the ages." And this really sums up the women's rights side of this debate, because from the modern left, they claim to be feminists and they always claim to hate straight white men and blame them for all of life's ills, while simultaneously just ignoring the fact that those men may discover a loophole and take advantage of the loophole to abuse women. But once they identify as women, no matter how much effort they put into this by means of surgery, looks, whatever, name change, voice change, they automatically shed their male behavior, even though trans women in prison are overrepresented for sexual crimes. And the scientific evidence says that trans women continue male pattern crime behavior even after adopting a trans identity. And if hundreds, if not thousands of Catholic priests would go to the effort of being trained as a priest, ordained as a priest, and living their whole life as a priest merely to get close to young boys and girls and sexually abuse them, why would a similar man not start identifying as a woman, especially when for a lot of them it is sexual in nature, they have autogynephilia, a sexual attraction and arousal at the thought of being a woman? Why would they not do that to get close to their victims? It is just common sense. Let's just hear a bit from Kizzy.
Hello, my name is Kizzy. My pronouns are she, her. I'd like to tell you about a story about some transphobia that happened to me earlier this year. Being Romany traveller and gypsy, I quite often go up to Appleby Horse Fair. This year was the first year I went as myself. That is, my true self.
Your pretend self.
I went with my cousin, who is a lesbian. So, on the first day, we just set up our tent. We were putting things into the tent, and I had just lit the fire. When a group of 5 young Irish traveller children decided it would be fun to come and terrorise us. So, terrorise. It's a big word. The main thing that they were doing was transphobia.
They were doing transphobia?
It wasn't the fact that there was 2 females together.
2 females together?
It was the transphobia. So, the transphobia that I received there was being poked with burning hot sticks, them trying to set my skirt on fire, calling me Dora the Explorer for some unknown reason, along with deciding Michael Jackson was a brilliant insult.
So, right, if this person suffered that abuse and it's true, then that's totally wrong. I condemn it. None of my arguments against gender ideology are in any way a vehicle to violence. They're just based on reality. But the fact that he is now on charge for the sexual abuse of a young girl, I have zero sympathy with him if he did indeed do that. And please just always take a step back and forget that he thinks he's a woman. There is no woman with a sane head on her shoulders that would see this incel-y, nerdy and kind of creepy type man and think that he belongs anywhere near female changing rooms, especially around children. But say you're a woman and then everything changes. Here's another interesting tweet from JK Rowling where she says, "That bitch definitely doesn't want you dead. She does think you could use some mental health support though." Now this was in reply to a screenshot from the MTF Reddit, which is basically an indoctrination forum for trans women, which is titled Panic Attack, with the tag venting. "I had the worst panic attack I've had in a long time connected to my gender issues. Today we had a staff meeting and sometimes they're going in to have fun activities to get us motivated for the day. Normally I can separate this from her Apparently, we all know who he's talking about. Oops. But this morning, I just lost it. As soon as the meeting organizer said we were doing a quiz about Harry Potter, I couldn't control my breathing. I just kept thinking in my head, that bitch wants us dead. That bitch wants us dead. Not logical, of course not. Well, I'm glad that he acknowledges that, because it's totally not true. And it just shows the level of indoctrination these people have, that when someone merely mentions a book, they have to start hyperventilating. And it is totally unfounded, totally not true that JK Rowling ever said she wants violence or death upon them. In fact, she has said to the contrary many times. But I just couldn't control it. I quietly got out of the room and went to the bathroom, sat there trying desperately to control my breathing for 15 minutes. I have no idea why this morning. People bring her up and Harry Potter all the time, and I don't lose it. But today was terrible. I'm sorry to dump on you, sisters, but it feels strangely big. I'm a bit shaky. So yeah, I mean, I'm sorry this was so traumatic for you, but if you get this triggered by a book of a woman who believes in sex-based rights, you are the problem. You have stuff to sort out. It is entirely irrational. You need some mental health support, just like JK Rowling said. And finally, everyone, to finish this off with a bit of comedy, JK Rowling quote tweeted Intel Lady. Now, she does amazing impressions online, particularly of Angela Rayner, the former Deputy Prime Minister. I'm already missing Intel Lady's Angela Rayner, but I'm here for all the spoofs. And she appears to have done a spoof on Emma Watson.
When it comes to my relationship with Jo, obviously, I will never forget the opportunity that she gave me. She saw something so special in me that she knew she had to bring me into her creative vision and make me part of that. And I will forever be grateful. She changed the entire trajectory of my life. And I'll never forget that. It's such a privilege. It truly, truly is. And I will always hold space for her and so much love in my heart for her, and I would hope that she felt the same way about me. But also,
I love how she gets the language perfectly of the elite media class. You know, we saw this with Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, holding space for defying gravity. She absolutely nails it. And she also really gets across the point that Emma Watson is supposedly having this profound realization and epiphany about JK Rowling that's supposed to be, you know, taking the higher ground, intelligent, mature, when the whole thing is just focused on herself.
I stand shoulder to shoulder with those who would wish harm on her, hate her, and would wish the absolute worst for her in her life. But those seemingly incompatible, those two things can exist at the same time, which is...
So she said what Emma Watson didn't say, but indirectly implied, is that she stands shoulder to shoulder with the abusive trans community. And apparently she's going to continue along that line.
Why I love this incredibly diverse world that we live in. It can be so visionary. It can be so artistic. It can have so much depth of love and anguish at the same time, and peace and war and time and space. But we can all come together and also seemingly push each other apart and distance ourselves expediently. But I truly feel that there will always be a warmth and a love between myself and her. I know she's still writing, and hopefully those writings will one day become hit movies and perhaps a franchise, and maybe she would consider working with me again down the line. My agent hasn't called me in a while, so I don't know if that would be possible. But I truly would love to reconnect with her, and I hope she understands how much I truly love her.
She does the accent pretty well too, right? Shout out to Intel Lady. Love what you do. Well, that's it, everyone. That is what JK Rowling has said in response. I think it is excellent. Let me know what you thought. Do you agree with what I said? Do you agree with what JK Rowling said? And what on earth do you think is going to be Emma Watson's reaction to this? Is there a chance that she's going to put her life on the line and actually come out and condemn some of the bad practices, or all bad practices, from the trans activist community? I guess time will tell. And will Daniel Radcliffe ever retract his unequivocal and creepy support of the transitioning of minors? I guess we'll see. And everyone, just a big thank you on the warm welcome I've received from coming back and making more videos. I feel like I've totally got my mojo back, and it is so great to connect with all of you in the comments. More to come in this space. Let me know what you want to see. And I'd also love your feedback on some of the recent videos I did, which were clips from a live stream. You know, there's far less editing like there is in this video. It's more casual. Do you find them as engaging? Do you like watching them? It is easier for me to make those, but I'm kind of considering my strategy from henceforth. So I'd love to know what you think of that. And with that said, I'll see you soon for another video. Bye.